Hi there, my name's Ollie and welcome back to my channel Menadu. In this video we're heading out to Venford Reservoir to test out my new hydrophone by recording water splashes, plops and movements. Then we're driving over to Dartmeet for some fast-paced river recordings and finally jumping into Cubase to design some sound effects. So grab yourself a cuppa, get comfy and let's hop right in. Venford Reservoir is located up on Dartmoor National Park, roughly in between Dartmeet and Spitchwick. There's a path that runs all the way around the reservoir and it's a nice gentle walk if it's as sunny as this. In my bag I've got my Zoom F6, my UC Pro mics and my newest addition to the sound bag, an Aquarian Audio H2d Hydrophone. You might have already seen me using this if you follow my Instagram page, but it's basically a microphone that you can use underwater to capture all sorts of sploshy sounds. I've also brought a spade and a fishing net. These are going to be used as props to create splashes or water submersions. Okie dokie, so we've got the spot down here. I'm thinking this is probably going to be the best spot. Woo! Because it's kind of far away from all the running water. There's a bit more running water over there and a little bit more that way. So I think this is the best, sort of most contained spot, and it's not super deep, so I can actually stand in it and not drown. So the first recordings I'm going to do are with my little spade, and I'm going to do some underwater sort of movements, so like underwater splashes. Got the hydrophone set up there just beyond the UC Pro microphones, and yeah, I'm going to do some splashes mainly under the water. Now I've got my little fishing net and I'm going to do some splashes around in the water and then use the stick end as well to get some different variations. So I'm going to use my spade now to just collect some rocks out of the water. Then I'm going to use those rocks to throw them in and get some like plop sounds. So this next one's going to be using my hand to like swash the water. Going to be freezing cold because it's November now in England. It's not that warm anymore. I'm just going to use my hand to create some like cupping action. Cup the water and then bubbles come up the side of it, and then somewhere it's like sploshing through. A little bit like some swimming actions. If you come down here, I'll show you that. The next one I'm going to do is, with my welly boots, I'm going to do some stomping in the water and some like kicking the water as well, and then emerging my foot out of the water. Finished up down here with the recordings, and then I'm going to pack up that stuff and probably head over to get a couple of bits of running water. I've already got loads of recordings of that at home, but I'm just going to do some tests with the hydrophone under the water paired with the UC Pros, so then you get out of the water and under the water, and then you can mix it together and you can get a fuller sound. It's a little bit like when I'm using my UC Pros with a geophone. The geophone gets like the really low subby sounds, so hopefully I get some like low alien-y sort of sounds because it's underwater and we're not used to hearing that. We'll head off to that bit in a sec. So yeah, there's the reservoir there behind me, quite a big one. I'm stood in the middle of the road right now, so it's a bit sketchy, but yeah, it looks pretty blessed. We are heading to Dartmeet, and I'm just going to pop there and have a quick cup of tea and a little vegan bacon bap, because I've always seen Dartmeet on this little mug that I have, and I've never been to Dartmeet, so I'm going to go to Dartmeet to drink a cup of tea out of the Dartmeet mug. So yeah, I'll meet you there. Dartmeet. Dartmeet. oat milk. It tastes even better being at Dartmeet. It does. Yeah, proper. So for this last one, I'm doing a little bit of a test. So I've got the UC Pro mic here, and they're just recording like the general bit of the river. And then I've got my hydrophone here, in between those rocks just there. There's just wedged in between those rocks. And I'm going to mix it between the two so you can hear the difference between just the normal river, like with mics a little bit further away from it, and the hydrophone. And then I'm going to do one where it's both of them together. So I'll press record now. Finished up at Dartmeet, had the good bat, had the good cup of tea, had it in the actual mug, and bye bye Dartmeet, and yeah, I'll catch you back at home when I'm doing some sound designy bits in a bit. So we've got our session here of the edits. I have broken them up into having the UC Pro on the left and right channel, and then having the hydrophone on the center channel and slightly lower in the mix. It's very similar to what I've done with my previous videos with the UC Pros and the Geophone. Let me just give you a demo now of what the UCs sound like, just on their own. And now this is what the hydrophone sounds like just on its own. And now this is them both together. So I just tidied the sounds up a little bit with some denoiser and done a tiny bit of EQing, not very much. You could hear a little bit in the background some of the rivers, but it was just noise in the end, like a hissing if you have the gain too high on a mic. So the denoiser was just to try and get some of the sound of the distant rivers out of it whilst the sound was fading out. I also done quite a savage fade on a lot of the tracks, just because you could hear extra different bits that I wasn't expecting. There was a lot of planes flying over, like propeller planes, and there was a couple of kids in the background, like further away playing, so you could hear their screaming every now and then. So I did have to do some quite savage cuts, and that's pretty much what I done with the edits. With the exports though, I bounced out the UC Pros as a stereo file, the hydrophone as like a stereo bounce, and also a mix of them as a stereo bounce. This was just so I could have more to play with when I'm doing some designing, so it's better to have all the different bits. If you don't really like the hydrophone in one of the mixes, you can cut that out, and if you don't really like the UCs in one of the mixes, you can cut that out as well. It just gives you more room to play around with stuff. Now I've opened up a first bit of sound design that I started doing. I wanted to make some like whooshy sort of sound, so it sounds like the water's coming up like that and then it's got like a tail to fall off, a little bit like the water emerging, but I am blending a lot of the sounds together to then create like a bigger water sound. I do this before I start doing any sound to picture, so I have like some design sounds already done to play around with, and then I can just drop them into place wherever they fit to the picture and then build up after that. So with this one, I've used a couple of the different sounds from the recordings, and there's some pitch shifting and some automation. So let me go through that now. The first thing you'll notice is I've added this filter. So this filter is called dual filter. I've just automated it so it does a bit of a high cut, then it brings it back up when it gets to the peak of the sound, and then it tails back off again. It's like if you're in the water and you emerge from the water, when you get out you can hear everything again, and then when you're submerged in the water you can't hear as well. If I play it now, you'll be able to see the filter moving along. And the filter was added to the group of all of these tracks down here. So I grouped all of these tracks together, a little bit like adding a bus. So there wasn't really much that I'd done to any of these tracks other than like a little bit of mixing. Some of them I'd done a pitch shift, so like these two. And you can see here that I've chosen to pick some of the mixed versions and some unmixed versions. This one is the hydrophone just on its own, that's why I've written hydrophone solo, and this one is a hydrophone mix, so that's the UC Pros and the hydrophone. So if I play just the hydrophone one, you get an idea. After I got a sound that I liked, I bounced that out and then brought it into a sampler. So Cubase has its own sampler, which is this one here. I've just got one of the sounds in here. So if I press one of the keys on here, so that's pretty much the sound that I bounced. And I got my little MIDI keyboard again and started playing around with some of the notes, because it will just give it different pitches of the swooshing and different speeds of the swoosh as well. I went through and done a couple of those and also played around with the filter cutoff. So again, like when I was playing around with the dual filter, when the sound started dying down or emerging, I played around with the filter so then it sounded like it was coming out of something. If I play a couple now of the ones that I did do. So they were sounding kind of big and chunky sort of rumbles, a little bit like the beach. You could take like a little sound and make it sound a lot hencher. Once I was happy with some of the sounds that I liked, I bounced all of those out and then chopped them so then they had a nice fade in and fade out. I duplicated the track and pitch shifted it down just so you got even more of a rumbly rumble. So that's the low one, this is the high one. And this is then mixed together. So doing the pitch shift sort of made it a little bit more bulky. There was also something else that I experimented with, and it was this. This is called FX Modulator, and it's a plugin native to Cubase. You can make crazy sort of modulation and automation, which helps create more character with the sound. So let me play a couple of these for you. So going a little bit crazy with the sounds is no bad thing. You can push it quite far just using EQ and filtering out the sounds and creating some like interesting automation where it like bounces up and down and you follow the sort of curvature of the waveform, and yeah, you can create some funky sounds out of that. Let's hop into the sound to picture now and I'll show you what I got up to. So this video was kindly provided by Aquarian. I hope I got your name right. Check out their stuff on Instagram, I'll put it up now. There's some like really sick 3D animation stuff. And I played around a couple of times before with their videos doing some slimy sound design. I reached out and asked if they had a water one to do, and this is it. So I'll play the video now with the audio and you can see what I've been up to. There's quite a few elements in there, so I'll start off with the whirlpool first. So here's the whirlpool, I'll play it now. I recorded single water movements, so that would be just like a single splash, and then I had done consistent water movements, which is swooshing it back and forth. I added a couple of those in on this whirlpool and done some pitch shifting, so this one here is down an octave compared to that one, adding a little bit more chunkiness. I added some more water splashes here for when the splashes sync up on the video, and I also added the dual filter again, so this is just filtering it out when it starts getting to the point where it's going to explode. So I'll play that now and you can get an idea of that. And if you're wearing headphones, you'll also notice that I've done some stereo panning. So it's sort of going side to side and it's following the movement of the water on screen. So it's sort of panning left and right. So you feel like you're in a whirlpool as well. And that was pretty much it for the whirlpool. It was just mixing it in with the other bits. So we'll go on to the main splash now. So the main splash consisted of using the sounds that we had created, so the sound design sounds in the previous project. So that was like the ones that we used this MIDI keyboard to create. I also used a couple of other sounds from the session using a mix between the hydrophones and the UC Pros. It was basically just layering it up so it followed the movement on screen. So I'll play that now. And that was pretty much it for that one. There wasn't an awful lot on it, I just needed to fit it to the movement. So let's move on now to the sub drop. So the sub drop was pretty much what it says on the tin. It was just using frequency generator, like the test generator on Cubase, to create like a sort of sound. So I'll play that now. It's probably going to be really hard to hear unless you're wearing headphones or listening on speakers, but it's kind of subtle. It's just adding an extra bit of beef to it. Then moving on swiftly to the specific splashes. So these specific splashes are the main little bits of lapping water. I don't want to do every single bit, else it would just sound like water noise. So you've got to pick out a couple of the best bits. So if I play that now, really simple. It was just lining it up with the little splashes on screen. The end ball bit, sounds weird. The end like sphere that pops up after it sort of explodes up into it. I did use some recordings from the river. When we went to Dartmeet, I used some of those sounds, sort of like the river flowing on the hydrophone. And I just added the dual filter again and done some EQing on that. So it automates the sound so it sounds like it's fuzzing in, like it's easier just to let you hear what I mean. So here's the dual filter. I'll play it without this on. You can hear that when I add the dual filter, it makes the sound sort of expand. It's like it closes in and then expands, and it's like a nice tension and release. That's usually what you're trying to go for, a nice bit of tension and release. So it's like if there's a massive explosion on the screen, it just goes like that sort of thing. That was pretty much it for that sphere ball. I added in some running water, so this was like the background ambience. So on the screen you can see here there's just a stream. And it sort of drops out around here when we're doing the main splash, because we don't want loads and loads of sounds going on at the same time. I added in some sea waves as well, so this was another recording session that I did. This is just some waves crashing against some rocks. Adding a little bit more chunky beefiness to the whirlpool. And this one is some peaches, I believe, yes. So I'd done a session where I was recording peaches and spaghetti, like mushing them up for some gore sounds and blowing bubbles into them. And I thought that the bubbles fitted really well into this because it added another layer to the water sound. Instead of it just being all like rushing water and crashes and splashes, this was like just adding more texture to it. So if I play it on its own a sec. Just to add a little bit more texture to the sound, because you're not going to see that sort of water movement in real life, so you can make the sound crazy as well. Does that make any sense? I think it makes sense in my head. Yeah, after that, I done a quick little bit of ambience. I had some recordings from when I was in Bristol in the woods, and then I also ran in the conservatory outside and just sort of ran my hands through some plants to create the footsteps that you're seeing on screen. So that was super subtle. It was just to add the ambience and the overall vibe to the sound. And an extra little bit of spice that I added was a guitar strumming sort of thing, because I was going to do like a music bed, but there was a lot of sounds going on, so it sounded nicer having a couple of nice little guitar chords before the big watery explosion happened. So if I just solo that now. And then have it with it in. And yeah, that's pretty much where I got to with the sound design. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's where I got to. Time for a little sign off. So I'll say thanks very much for watching. Cheers for sticking around to this point. Thanks Kern for the visuals to play around to. They look sick, as always, and they're really fun to sound design because there's always something interesting and weird going on. If you want to check out Kern's work, pop over to their Instagram, which I'll show here on the screen. Go show them some love, because That's how the world goes round, innit? And cheers for sticking around to the end. If you did enjoy this video, please give me a like and subscribe. It means a lot. I want to sort of boost up my channel a little bit more. Post a little bit more on my Instagram account. You'll see on there bits and bobs that I'm doing straight away because it takes a lot longer to make these YouTube videos. So yeah, give that one a follow if you fancy it. And cheers again. I'll see you in a bit.